Welcome back, everybody, to 214-215 podcast. I'm Zekrom.
And I am salty.
This NFL season has been really hard to understand. There are teams we thought would be really good that aren't really good. There are teams that we thought would be really bad who are very good. And it's just really hard to tell who's good and who's not. But one thing is for sure and certain so far is that the Cowboys and Eagles are really, really bad. So first, let's go in and talk about the Cowboys. So the Cowboys are 2-3-1 this year. They just lost 30-27 against the Carolina Panthers. This was a very disappointing loss, to be quite frank. The Carolina Panthers aren't exactly a very impressive team. They are 500 this year after this victory, but they don't exactly they're not exactly upper tier team. This is a game that the Cowboys should have won, and they had a lot of opportunities to win, which we will get into later. But first, let's talk about some positives. One of the obvious positives from this game was Dak Prescott. He had over 260 yards and three touchdowns. The entire game he was in control. One play that specifically stands out was in the third quarter. They were trailing by, I think, about 4 points, and they were at the Carolina 36, I think. Dak Prescott on a third down just completely took over the pre-snap and found and drew up the perfect play at the line to get George Pickens a touchdown, which we will talk about later. This season, he's just been arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. Last week, I was trying to push the Dak Prescott MVP agenda, which is not going to happen because his team is so bad. So it's looking like it's going to be kind of like Joe Burrow last year, where he's obviously a top 4 or 5 quarterback at least this season. However, his team is just really bad, mostly due to the defense. This season, he's second in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He's fourth in completion percentage, and he's first in total expected points added. So he's just been so good this year. It's been a real shame seeing him play this well and not being rewarded with a winning record like he deserves. Another big positive from this week was George Pickens. George Pickens has been the Cowboys' number one wide receiver with CeeDee Lamb out for the last 3 weeks, and he's been amazing in those weeks. Over the last 3 weeks, he is first in first downs, second in yards, first in touchdowns, and first in yak and yards after catch. And for those of you who watched the game, saw that George Pickens was having kind of just doing whatever out there. He tried to hurdle a guy standing up. He was running all over up and down the field. It was just a really good performance from him. He had over 160 yards, a touchdown on 9 catches. And this has started discussions about George Pickens' contract. Now, the Cowboys' local radio station, for some reason, thinks that trading George Pickens might be a good move because we don't know if we're going to extend him. Personally, I think that you just pay him whatever he wants at this point, although, as we've seen recently, that may not work for Jerry Jones. But into going into the season, George Pickens did say that he did not want to focus on a contract during the season. The general consensus was that he's going to let the season play out, and so far, as long as he stays healthy from here, he's going to get a massive payday. I felt really confident re-signing him going into the year, but now seeing how he's played, I was hoping he would kind of take like a T. Higgins contract where he's not the highest paid. I think T. Higgins got around 29 to 28 million a year. So I was kind of hoping with the cap going up that George Pickens would get around that, maybe 30 million. But he's kind of playing himself into like that CeeDee Lamb territory, which might make it really hard to re-sign him. Although I really think that it's a price worth paying because if you do, you pretty much have your entire offense locked up for the next 3 years, assuming you give him a longer deal. Meaning that you have 4 first round picks and some cap space to spend completely on the defense, which we will get into in a second. But obviously, George Pickens has been really good this year, and he's just been one of the positives of this team. He was a big positive of this game. Another positive from this game was that at least passing wise, the O line held up pretty good. Throughout this year, they've been really good run blocking, but their pass blocking has been pretty poor. It's been bailed out by the fact that Dak Prescott has been so good under pressure. But this game, the O line held up pretty well. Obviously, Carolina is not a very good pass rushing team. However, anytime you can keep your quarterback upright for most of the game, I think that's a success. And the last positive from this game is that Jake Ferguson caught another touchdown. It is his fourth touchdown in the last 3 games. He hadn't caught a touchdown for almost, I think, 17 or 16 straight games, and now he's kind of just like faucet is just completely open now. that was all the positives from the game, there are a lot more negatives for the Cowboys. One of them is that Javonte Williams had his first pretty bad game of the year. Um, I say bad game of the year, but honestly, he was making the most of what he had. Um, the Panthers have a really good run defense, so that kind of stifled them a bit. But overall, Devontae Williams has been able to like break tackles and things like that. He just was not able to do that today. And out of 19 carries that the offense had in total, they only had two successful runs. So in case you don't know, a successful run on first down, it's if you get 40% of the yardage needed. On second down, it's if you get 60% of the yards needed. And on third down, you get 100% of yards needed. And they only got 2 out of 19, so that's pretty poor.
I know there was a lot of clowning on the Cowboys hiring Brian Schottenheimer as the new head coach. How much of this offensive success would you attribute to him, or do you think this has been more just like been led by Dak Prescott more than Schottenheimer's like play calling and play design?
But I think that a lot of it is Dak Prescott being good, but I think a lot of credit needs to go to Brian Schottenheimer. George Pickens' routes, he was lined up all over the field. He was running all sorts of routes, so they're really finding ways to get him open. I think that along with Schottenheimer, Clayton Adams also deserves a lot of credit. He obviously last week I mentioned his value to the run game that he had with Arizona, and he showed now in Dallas. Obviously, as I just mentioned, the run game hasn't been very successful. Didn't wasn't very successful last game, but I think but considering what they did in the first 5 weeks, I don't think that this is a sign that the run game is about to get figured out. I just think it's a case of they played a really good defense, a really good rushing defense at least, and yeah, I think a lot of it is Dak being at the line and being at the line because he is really controlling the line, audibling to like the right place most of the time. But I think Schottenheimer definitely deserves his credit. Um, yeah, I just think Schottenheimer deserves a lot of credit, and I think a lot of that is also due to Clayton Adams being the offense coordinator and bringing his schemes in over. But speaking of Schottenheimer, he did do one thing overall kind of bad, and it was the Cowboys' last drive of the game. So the Cowboys were around the 40-yard line. It was a tie game with around 8 minutes left. And so this was an opportunity for the Cowboys to take the lead. And you're kind of hoping that you chew up around 5 minutes of clock on this drive just so like they can't just do whatever they want on so you're forcing them to pass, especially the Panthers who have been running it all over us all game. So if you get them with less time on the field, you can force them to pass the ball, which they hadn't done a lot of during the game. But that's not what happened. On the first play of the drive, Schottenheimer ran a bit of a like I believe I'm not sure what the exact like play call name is, but it's kind of like a throwback screen. So what happens is Dak Prescott, he does a play action, he rolls out to his right, and then he throws back across the field to the running back Javonte Williams, and they have blocker set up, so it's basically a screen pass. And that play has been really bad for us all year. We've run it several times. I don't even think it's been successful once. I'm not sure why we keep running it. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know if Schottenheimer's the one who's saying that I really like this play. I want this to be run. I don't know if it's Dak being like, I think that we have a good matchup for this play. I don't know what's going on, why we keep running it, but it's definitely a play we need to take out of the playbook because it's just been really bad for us. I don't even think that play has worked that well. I don't know, Salty, if you know what I'm talking about. But like whenever like the quarterback just rolls out and tries to throw it back across the field to a screen pass, it barely works. Anytime I've seen it in a game, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
I
never
don't get
ever
why
seen
there
that
are
play ever work once once in my life.
yeah that it's just a really bad play. I don't know why
Hmm.
teams still run it. I don't know why Schottenheimer specifically runs it. And that play just kind of set the drive back really far. Now you lose 5 yards on the play. It's second down and 15. On the next play, they threw another pass behind the line of scrimmage to Devontae Williams, which lost 5 yards again. So now you're in a third and 20. That play wasn't a screen pass, but I think that Dak Prescott I think that might have been on Dak. I think he might have had Pickens open a bit downfield, but there was a bit of pressure, so I think he tried to throw at the feet of Javonte Williams, but he threw too far, so Javonte caught it and then got tackled. So it would have been better if it was just incomplete. And then on third down and 20, we threw another pass behind the line of scrimmage on Lipke, which went absolutely nowhere. We punted it over to the Panthers with 6 minutes left, and Dak Prescott didn't see the ball. So that was a really bad drive for play calling, especially that situation. And if this podcast had been recorded right after the game, I would have gone absolutely in on Schottenheimer for that play call. But at the same time, you're kind of expecting Schottenheimer to be absolutely perfect because of the defense and how bad it's been. And that's just kind of not fair. Even the best offensive coordinators like Shanahan, McVay, they all have really bad drives every now and then. And usually it's okay because sometimes your defense should be able to get a few stops per game to like help you out. But with the Cowboys, Schottenheimer and Dak have to be absolutely perfect to win us games. And even then, that hasn't worked out because they were pretty perfect against the Packers, but we only got a tie out of that game. And the biggest negative of the game is obviously the defense. Now, Rico Dowdle, former Cowboys running back, now with the Carolina Panthers, rushed for over 200 yards last week against the Miami Dolphins. And after the game, he told the Cowboys to buckle up. Now, the Cowboys could have taken this personally and showed Rico Dowdle that, hey, we're not going to let you just dominate us. But he did. He had over 180 yards on the ground. He added 55 yards over in the air. And the Carolina Panthers overall, they had 25 successful runs out of 38 total runs. So they were just consistently getting 5 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards on early downs, which just set up their offense perfectly. I mean, if you're just getting 7 yards every single play, then your offense is obviously going to do really well, and your defense is always going to be in a bad spot. The Carolina offensive line just absolutely dominated the Cowboys defensive line. I mean, it was really bad. Obviously, there's been a lot made about trading for run defense. That's why you traded Micah Parsons. I don't think Micah Parsons would have helped with the run defense, but at the same time, if you're making that trade, you should be good on the run defense, and you were not. Another thing is, even beyond the run defense, the pass defense is not much better. I don't think I've seen a defense that allows people to run by you as much as this. Like, there are defenses that just have massive gaps in their defense, and you just find these holes over and over and over. If you remember the Cowboys Packers playoff game in 2023, that's kind of what happened. Love was getting a lot of big plays through the air, but that was because of big gaps in coverage. With this defense, guys just run by. It's just like, I don't understand how you can just let so many people just run by you on defense. And it's just like, this is Matt Eberflus's scheme where you just play heavy zone and you're just kind of conservative. But none of these guys can play zone on the Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland are both man corners. They're not very good in zone. Donovan Wilson is pretty much your free safety, and he's been awful in that role. He's pretty much only good at tackling at this point. He's never even been very good in coverage, but this year has been really, really bad for Donovan Wilson. Um, and this all culminated in a crucial fourth down on the Cowboys side of the field. I think it was around the 40-yard line. It was fourth down and 3, and the Panthers had the ball on near the Cowboys 40-yard line. And the Panthers decided to go for it because they wanted to run out the clock. This was after the Cowboys' last drive, so this was with around 3 minutes left. If the Cowboys make the stop, which I think everyone knew that they wouldn't, but if they did make the stop, they would be at midfield with 3 minutes left and a chance to win the game. What happened was on a fourth down and 3, Deron Bland in man coverage was 7 yards off the was 10 yards off the ball. And Hunter Renfrow ran a quick slant and Bryce Young found him for the first down. Now, I don't understand why you are playing so off. Like, I understand some people saying, like, okay, so Kenneth Murray on the play is supposed to rob it from where he's lining up at the line. He's supposed to jump out and undercut that route. But if you're relying on Kenneth Murray to make a play to save the game, I don't understand why you're doing that as a defensive coordinator. Like, it's one thing if your players are bad. It's one thing if you're asking them to do things that they can't do. I don't know why you paid Deron Bland 90 million a year, 90 million and 20 million a year if you're not going to let him actually play coverage. So, and the Panthers got that. They ran out the clock and kicked the game-winning field goal. the Cowboys defense overall this year, I've talked about it a lot. Last podcast, I talked about it this podcast. They're really bad this year. Here's just a couple stats about the Cowboys this year. They are 32nd in points per game allowed, yards allowed, rushing first downs allowed, and third down conversion rate at over 53%. They are 30th in yards per play, and they're 29th in completion percentage allowed. So pretty much any way you look at the Cowboys on defense, they are really, really bad. I just don't know what you can do to fix it. I mean, I feel like a lot of this is just scheme based. I mean, sure the players are bad, but sure, sure, there's not a lot of talent on this defense. A lot of talent and a lot of talent has been hampered by injuries like Trayvon Diggs. But at the same time, it has to be schemed because why are people just able to just run by you on massive downs? Why are so many people open? Why on a lot of the run plays, we just weren't matching up on personnel. When they were running, had three tight ends on the field, we were playing a base defense. So it's just a lot of things that are wrong with the Cowboys defense. I don't know what he can do to fix it, to be quite honest. The Marvion Overshown had his practice window open. He was good last year, but you're kind of relying on him to save you, which I don't know if I don't think that he can. Um, yeah, there's just nothing good on that side of the ball to speak of. And next week, they get to play the Washington Commanders. This game is pretty much guaranteed to be a shootout. The Commanders' defense isn't very good. The Cowboys' defense isn't very good. Dak historically has pretty much owned the Commanders. He last lost to them in 2022, but that was kind of a meaningless game. And before that, he last lost to them in 2018. So he's had really good success against the Commanders. He usually has a pretty good game against the Commanders. Along with this, the offense will get a boost. According to Schottenheimer, CeeDee Lamb, Kavontae Turpin, and Tyler Burker all are hopeful to be back that week. I just mentioned DeMarvin Overshown. He just had his practice window opened. I think a lot of Cowboys fans are putting a bit too much faith into Overshown being good. Keep in mind, this is his second major knee surgery on the same knee. So you're kind of asking a lot for him to supposedly be the savior of the defense. There's no guarantee that he's even going to be able to move the same way. Like, remember Jalen Smith? Jalen Smith, also a former Cowboy, was really good in college, and then he had pretty some good years in the NFL, and then he got some injuries and he was bad. And what's just so frustrating about the Cowboys that this conference is not good. The NFC East is not good. The top teams in the NFC aren't that impressive. I mean, the Detroit Lions just lost to Kansas City Chiefs team that has struggled this year. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are currently the one seed at 5-1, but they haven't been really dominating games. They've been going into multiple clutch games. Some of them against not very impressive teams themselves. So it's just a lot of things are bad with the Cowboys right now. Pretty much the only thing good is the offense, and they are getting reinforcements, but that's not the side of the ball that we need to be worrying about. Unless this defense magically makes like a massive turnaround, I just don't see this team being very serious. Um, like I said last podcast, if you're 5-3-1, if you're 5-3-1 at the bye, you feel pretty good about where you are. That now you get to play the Commanders, Broncos, and Cardinals before the bye. If you can win all those games, great. I find it hard to believe that you will, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Maybe they'll make a run. I doubt it, but who knows? And that's pretty much all I can say about the Cowboys. I know Salty wants to talk about the Eagles now, even though we've been talking for a long time. So take it away, Salty.
All right. So the Eagles had another very disappointing loss on Thursday Night Football versus the Giants, losing 34 to 17. The offense once again completely fell apart in the second half. They have now scored only 7 points in the second half in the last three games in total. And it's just a lot of the same story as I talked about last podcast, where the defense at this point, you can tell, is just exhausted. They gave up 172 yards on the ground to the Giants, and they were just getting bullied up front. And the Eagles' offense doesn't do anything to support the Eagles' defense. Uh, They're now ranked last or close to last in most offensive metrics. They are 29th in passing yards. They're 25th in rushing yards. They're 30th in total yards. In every single game so far this season, their defense has allowed more yards than they have gained. A lot of it can be blamed on Kevin Patullo and his play design and play calling and the lack of second half adjustments where the opposing defense will have their adjustments and the Eagles offense seemingly has no answer to whatever the opposing defense is presenting to them.
You mentioned earlier about how the Eagles have been poor in the second half. The Eagles offense has been. Just a couple of stats that I have noticed. They're 32nd in points per drive, 32nd in scores per drive, 32nd in drives to the red zone, 31st in punt rate, 31st in yards per drive, 29th in three and out rate, last in EPA per play, and 31st in yards per play. So just anything offensively, they've been really bad.
Yeah, and a lot of that gets exacerbated in the second half. And it's not like in the first half they were dominating. They had 17
Yeah.
points, and last week versus the Broncos they had 10 points at the half. But it's just very frustrating to see the offense completely shut down every single second half. They look like they completely forget how to play football. And like not all of it can be blamed on Kevin Patul. Some of it was John Hurts. He had that interception when they were driving down the field in the second half, the one and only good drive they had that second half. And then he also missed Devontae Smith wide open for what would have been a big gain, if not a touchdown. And obviously, the defense cannot give up 34 points to a very bad Giants team. But I have a lot more confidence in Vic Fangio being able to figure out what to do and how to fix this defense than I do in Kevin Patullo. Quinion Mitchell was out for the majority of the game, and Jalen Carter didn't play. Those are two very massive holes in your defense, especially when your cornerback two has already been pretty susceptible with the carousel of Keely Ringo and Adore Jackson and Jacorian Bennett earlier in the season. Having two of those guys out there is just not you're not going to be able to have a good defense with that, especially with Jalen Carter out, which also leaves a gaping hole in your defensive tackle depth. But it's just been very, very frustrating watching the Eagles these last few weeks. And they'll likely rebound and not like end the season without winning another game, right? But I just currently, with how their offense has worked and looked and everything, they do not look like a Super Bowl contending team right now, which again is crazy considering all the offensive talent that they have. Even if the offensive line run blocking hasn't been that good, and again, this game they couldn't run the ball, mostly because they were down for a lot of the game. They were forced into passing situations, but still the run game didn't look particularly good.
One thing I wanted to mention about the Eagles offense is that over his last three games, Jalen Hurts is 6 of 28 on third downs, and I think a lot of that is Jalen Hurts not playing like as well as he can. But at the same time, obviously, Patula isn't doing very good for him. I think he's in a lot of third down and longs. If you're putting a quarterback at the third down and long pretty much every time, he's not going to do very good. Most of the time, unless you have like prime Peyton Manning or something like that, or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's been a big issue with the offense so far. Or yeah, Jalen Hurts has not been the best, but a lot of the time the Eagles are running on first and second down for very minimal gains, and then you're stuck with a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Or though they've also had a lot, they've been a very undisciplined team so far in the season, where they have a lot of pre-snap penalties, and then you'll be stuck on the 3rd and 12, a 3rd and 13, stuff like that, and that's just not a sustainable place for your offense to be at. And again, the Eagles just don't currently have an identity. Last season, it was all based on the running game, just keeping them in manageable third downs where they could then push, or it'd be 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and you could just run it again, right? For a big play. And you were hitting explosives in the running game. So far, Saquon Barkley's longest run is 18 yards. Last season, he averaged an explosive run play, which was 20 yards or more, once per game. So far this season, he has had 0. And it's just when you're not getting explosives in the running game, you're not getting explosives in the passing game. you can't run on a consistent down to down basis because that was never the forte of the Eagles offense last season. They weren't like a consistent running game where they had 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. It was based on getting those explosives. You don't have that. There's just nothing that your offense can bank on every single week to have. Like when you're in a tough situation, you need to get a drive going. Like those staple Eagles drives that they've had for years where they get a lead in the second half and they can just crush you by just running an 8 minute long drive and just going down the field and completely demoralizing the other team. They just can't do that right now. The Giants did that to the Eagles this season, and that's just not something that we've been used to seeing the Eagles have happen to them in a very long time. And it's very worrying. But again, I trust the Eagles defense to get it together. I do not currently trust the Eagles offense to get it together.
Yeah, I when I was watching the game on Thursday, I was watching three games at the same time. It was pretty bad. I was watching the Phillies game, I was watching the Eagles game, and I was watching the Dallas Stars play their season opener. But what I noticed that every single time on like second down, it was always like a run out of shotgun. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just such a predictable offense. Even though I don't like the Eagles, it's just kind of frustrating because like bad football is bad to look at, right?
Yeah.
And it's just really annoying seeing just like again and again and again, just like you can just tell what is going to happen.
And another thing that's concerning for the Eagles defense is Zadarius Smith retired
Oh yeah.
earlier this week, which this Eagles edge group is already pretty rough. The depth has been pretty bad, and Nolan Smith has also been out, is still on IR. That is one going weakness on this defense that if the Eagles want to be serious as contenders, aside from their offense getting fixed, they also probably need to address the edge group because last season they lost Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, and their edge group just hasn't done much of anything so far this season.
Huge.
Yeah, their leading sack leader currently is Zach Bond with 2 sacks, tied with Jordan Davis and Morajoma. So a linebacker and 2 defensive tackles. Their leading sack leader at edge rusher was Zadarius Smith, who is now retired. So it's just not a viable pass rush group right now, with only 9 sacks through 6 games so far.
You know,
But
you mentioned Zach Bond having only 2 sacks. You know who that is more though? That who that is more than?
cool.
Micah Parsons.
Doesn't Michael Parsons have 2.5?
I think he has 1.5.
Last time I checked, he
Did
had
he
two
get
and a
one
half.
last game?
I think so. You're gonna have to correct yourself on that Micah Parsons slander. You know that elite Cowboys run defense hasn't really materialized either with Kenny Clark. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, you know who still has more sacks than Micah Parsons? James Houston.
oh, okay, yeah, that's fair. He's definitely better than Micah. That's so true. But yeah, looking forward to the Eagles' next opponent against the Vikings. They again, just like the Giants and the Broncos, should have the advantage versus them. Carson Wentz is likely to still be the starter unless they go to Max Brosmer, who's their third string quarterback. That defense should do enough against the Vikings where the Eagles offense should have a chance to get the win, but they are going against the Brian Flores defense, which historically have been the type of defenses that John Hurts has struggled versus the blitz. Though this season he has been a lot better against the blitz, and his biggest issue has been zone coverage. And the Eagles' offense inability to do anything at zone. So I expect the Eagles to win versus the Vikings. They should. They have more talent. They have a better offense and defense talent wise, but unless the Eagles offense does something differently, I you can never be certain. The Vikings offense does have Kevin O'Connell calling the plays, who's a very good schemer, very good play caller. So the Vikings offense might just scrape enough by on offense versus the Eagles, especially if Quinion Mitchell doesn't play, that they steal the win. But talent wise, the Eagles are the much better team, but they just currently haven't played like they haven't shown it. And they're very lucky that they're still first in the NFC East because every other team in the division lost, or the Giants just are 2-4. But if the Eagles don't start picking it up, they're going to lose traction in the NFC East, just like they've lost already in the NFC with the Bucks, who are 5-1. Moving on to the pick section.
So last week, Salty went 10-5, and I went 9-6, I believe. So Salty currently has the lead because we only disagreed on one game, and that was the Jaguars Seahawks game, and the Seahawks won. So starting off this week on Thursday Night Football, we have the Steelers and the Bengals. The Steelers have had a really good start to the year. They just beat the Cleveland Browns pretty convincingly by multiple scores. The Bengals just lost to the Green Bay Packers. They now have Joe Flacco at quarterback, who was about as what you expected. He didn't really do anything until like the very end. I think that the Steelers will win this game. I don't think. I think it actually might be kind of close. I remember one of our one of our friends who's a Steelers fan, was upset at us because we were kind of like, oh, maybe the Browns can keep it close. But I actually do think that the Bengals can keep it a little close. The Bengals defense actually had a relatively like compared to what their talent level is, they had a nice game against the Packers. So maybe they can kind of keep it close and Joe Flacco can maybe hit Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but I do think ultimately the Steelers will win this game.
Yeah, I agree. The Steelers do have that incredible ability to always play down or up to the competition, where they're likely going to keep it close with the Bengals and pull it out at the end, like they always do. Aaron Rodgers has looked pretty good so far this season. The Steelers' running game has also looked pretty good. And the Bengals just with Joe Flacco and that terrible defense just don't have enough where they'll probably fall behind eventually and the Steelers will pull off a win to get to 5-1 where they still have a pretty commanding lead of the division and so far in the AFC have a pretty good seeding as well. Going on to the next game, Rams Jaguars, which is another London game. The Rams should have the win versus the Jaguars after the Jaguars lost one versus the Seahawks at home. Even though the Rams might be without Puka Nacua, they just have enough offensive firepower with how incredible Matthew Stafford has played so far this season, where they should win. But also in these London games, anything can happen. Just with the jet lag and the distance traveled, you never know with how these games are going to go. They're often very sloppy. But I do think that the Rams should be able to pull out the win versus the Jaguars.
Yeah, London is kind of the Jaguars' kind of home away from home. They played a lot of games there. I do think that ultimately the Rams will win this game. I think that it's going to come down to the defenses, and I trust the Rams defense to get stops more than I trust the Jaguars defense to. So I'm taking the Rams. Next, we have the Saints and the Bears. The Bears are coming off a really good Monday night victory against the Washington Commanders. The New Orleans Saints had a kind of good effort against the Patriots, although I don't know if anyone watched that game, but there was some questionable officiating that was benefiting the Saints, or ultimately they were not able to win. Spencer Rattler has been pretty good, uh, especially considering his expectations going into the year. He's giving them at least average quarterback play. Ultimately, the Bears at home will win this game, in my opinion. I think that Caleb Williams has taken a step under Ben Johnson. The Bears defense currently leads the league in interceptions. Their defensive backs coach is now Al Harris, who used to be with the Cowboys. I think that the Bears will be able to force a couple turnovers. I think that their offense will be able to be stopped, and they'll get the victory.
Yeah, I agree. The Bears had a very impressive win versus the Commanders last week. And even though the Saints have kept it close with a lot of teams, the talent difference at the end of the day just, again, usually goes against the Saints. And the Bears have looked like a more consistent offense with Ben Johnson calling the plays. And yeah, the Bears should very likely win this game against the Saints. The next game is the Dolphins at Browns, two 1-5 teams. The Dolphins always can bank on that great offense that they had, but that is the one forte of the Browns, who have a very good defense. So this might turn into a bit of a slogfest where the Browns offense can't capitalize on how bad Dolphins defense has been. But I think the firepower of the Dolphins, along with Mike McDaniel's play calling and scheming, should be enough for them to win against the Browns.
Yeah, this game is kind of good versus good and ass versus ass. The Dolphins offense versus the Browns defense, and then the Dolphins defense versus the Browns offense. So I think that this will be a pretty low scoring game. I think that the Dolphins will score, but I think that ultimately I trust the Dolphins offense to score more points. And I don't trust Dylan Gabriel to be able to lead a competent offense, even against a bad defense like the Dolphins. Although they could win if Quinshon Judkins has a good game. Obviously, the Dolphins' run defense is pretty bad. So I'm taking the Dolphins, but I think it's going to be a close game. Next, we have the Patriots at the Tennessee Titans. The Patriots obviously just beat, as I just mentioned, just beat the Saints. And they're looking really good. They currently have the division lead after winning against the Buffalo Bills last week. The Titans just fired their head coach. I think Bill Callahan was it. Um, and
Brian
they made
Callahan.
Mike McCoy, Brian Callahan. My bad. Brian Callahan. They just fired him, and now Mike McCoy is the interim head coach. He previously coached the Chargers. He made the playoffs, I think, a couple years, but was not a very successful run. I think the Patriots will easily win this game. Drake May is looking like a franchise quarterback. Stephon Diggs has heated up as the season has gone along. And overall, I just think that the Patriots are just much better. They're better coached. They have the Tennessee Titans' former head coach and Mike Vrabel. So I think this will be a nice revenge game for Vrabel. I think the Patriots will cruise to a victory here.
Yeah, I agree. The Titans just are a disaster right now, even after firing
Yeah.
Brian Callahan. Even though there's sometimes that interim coach bump where the team plays really good the week following the firing of their head coach, the Patriots have looked a lot better so far this season with Drake May, like Zach said, playing incredibly well so far this season. And yeah, with how bad the Titans have been so far this season, they haven't shown anything to indicate that they can beat the Patriots. And yes, any given Sunday, crazy things can happen, like how they beat the Cardinals. But the Patriots
Yeah.
are just a much better team, where I think they should have a very easy win here.
Yeah,
The
the
next,
Titans needed sorry about that. The Titans needed like Looney Tune shit to happen to the Cardinals in order to win that game. And after the game, I don't know if you saw, but Brian Callahan was like, if we play like that every week, we'll win a lot of games. They should honestly be 0-6 right now. It wasn't for just the Cardinals just shitting all over themselves. But like I said and what Salty said, I think the Patriots will cruise to a victory.
the next game we have is Raiders at the Chiefs. The Raiders got a win against the terrible Titans last week, and the Chiefs had a very impressive win against the Lions. Uh, where both me and Zach doubted the Chiefs' ability to beat the Lions. We said they might even blow them out, but the Chiefs actually did the complete opposite, blowing out the Lions, which is very, very impressive. But yeah, the Chiefs are a much more talented team with Patrick Mahomes and the offense looking resurgent, especially with them now getting Rashee Rice back from suspension. And they should have a very easy win here against the Raiders to hopefully get back into the division race with the Broncos and Chargers.
Yeah, the Chiefs organization has been talking about Rashee Rice, like he can really be like that last missing piece. Rashee Rice is obviously really good. He had a really good start last year before he tore up his knee. The Raiders aren't very good. Geno Smith had another interception last week, but it didn't matter because they were playing the Titans and they're not very good. I think that the Chiefs will get a pretty easy victory here. I think that their defense will force enough turnovers off of Geno Smith because he'll give you a lot of opportunities. And I think that the offense will have a good game. Next, we have the Eagles and Vikings. I think I picked against every time this year, even before the podcast started. I have a pick'em league, and I always picked against the Eagles, and the Eagles would win. Last 2 weeks, I picked the Eagles, and they've lost. So low key, I might have power to decide whether or not the Eagles collapse here and just continue picking them to win. However, I will be taking the Eagles this week. I do think that if they can't win this game versus this Vikings offense, I think it's officially panic time. I feel like maybe you should be panicking if you're an Eagles fan, considering how bad the offense has been. But you know, after this, if you lose this game, you're going to be 4-3, and you'll only be maybe a game ahead of either the Cowboys or the Commanders. So this is an important game for the Eagles to get, and I think that they will be able to get the victory.
Yeah, if the Eagles lose this game versus the Vikings, like it, the Eagles are in complete free fall. Like even despite everything I said about Brian Flores and how good his defense is, the Eagles have so much more talent than the Vikings, especially the Eagles' defense compared to the Vikings' offense, where they should have a very easy win despite all the offensive struggles. So yeah, I think the Eagles are going to win, like I said before. But yeah, if they lose, it's a complete disaster. The next game is Panthers at the Jets, with the Panthers having a very close and exciting win versus the Cowboys, and the Jets, who had negative 10 net passing yards versus the Broncos in a London game last week. Justin Fields has been terrible, and with how good the Panthers running game has been and the Jets defense has also been bad, I think the Panthers should get the win here to get to a surprising 4-3 record so far through the season. And yeah, the Jets with Aaron Glenn just have been a complete disaster so far. Aaron Glenn said he wasn't even thinking about benching Fields yet, but I honestly feel like they should start to consider it with how just completely awful he's been to start the season.
I also have the Panthers winning this game. Rico Dowdle, as we mentioned, has been great the last 2 weeks. The Jets don't have a very good run defense, so I think that even if, or maybe if Chuba Hubbard comes back, either way, whoever starts for the Panthers is going to have a really good game. Justin Fields has not been good this year. Carolina, we've kind of forgot to mention it, but Carolina is only a 1.5, 1.5 point favorite over the Jets. I think that the Panthers will easily win this game, to be quite honest. Maybe the Jets can get some assistance from the MetLife turf, but I don't think that the Jets can hang with the Panthers, especially if they run the ball like the Panthers have been doing this year. Next, we have the Giants at the Broncos. Denver is a 6.5 point favorite. I think that the Broncos will win this game. Their defense has kind of struggled to start this year. However, I think that they're not exactly playing a very good offense in the Giants. I think that playing against a rookie quarterback will give them an opportunity to for some turnovers. And I think that the Broncos offense will do just enough to get them a victory.
Yeah, even with how impressive Dart and Scatterboo looked against the Eagles, the Broncos defense has been on another level of the Eagles this season, and the Broncos offense usually does more just enough to get to eke out these victories. And the Giants, even after that impressive win versus the Eagles, I don't think they have enough firepower to keep up with the Broncos. So yeah, I think the Broncos win this game. The next game we have is a very fun matchup between the Colts and the Chargers, with the Colts being one of the surprise teams this season, where Daniel Jones just keeps rolling and playing incredibly, and Jonathan Taylor has also been insane this season. The Chargers offensive line currently has just completely injury riddled, and Herbert has been struggling behind that offensive line at times. So I believe the Colts should have this win. They should keep rolling versus the Chargers. However, the Chargers do have Justin Herbert, who is a very, very good quarterback, and it's not like the Colts defense is some juggernaut where the Chargers could do more than enough to keep up with them, and just whoever has the ball last ends up having a game-winning drive and just winning the game. But yeah, I believe the Colts get this win versus the Chargers.
I do think that the Colts, however, will win this game. I think mainly because Jonathan Taylor is just going to absolutely run all over the Chargers. The Chargers have struggled against the run this year. They just had Achan run all over them. So I think that Jonathan Taylor will have a good game, and I think they'll ride his coattails over to a really strong victory. Next, we have America's Game of the Week, the Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. Let me tell you something about me. I am always going to pick the Cowboys. They could be playing the X-Men, the Avengers, and the Fantastic Four all at the same time, and I would still pick them to win. This is going to be a shootout, though. I expect both teams to drop 30 plus points. Ultimately, I think it's just going to come down to like the last game, the Colts Chargers game. Whoever has the ball last is going to win, and hopefully it's the Cowboys. But I'm picking them to win.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Commanders here. The Commanders defense hasn't been good by any means, but compared to the Cowboys defense, anything is better. And I think the Commanders defense
Yeah.
forces maybe just one or two stops, and that proves to be enough versus the Cowboys defense that just can't stop anybody currently. And Jaden Daniels has been very good so far this season. He's continued from his incredible rookie campaign. And yeah, I think the Commanders get the win here. The next game is the Packers at the Cardinals. The Packers had a close win versus the Bengals. They've continued to look pretty sloppy throughout the season with that loss to the Browns and then the tie with the Cowboys. And honestly, I think this depends on whether Kyler is back this week or if Jacoby Brissett is starting another game. If Kyler is back, I could honestly see this going either way. Oh, and also Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a concussion. If both of those plays, I could honestly see the Cardinals getting this win. But if either of them are out, especially if Kyler is out and Jacoby plays, I think the Packers have more than enough to get this win. So I'm going to predict that the Packers win this game.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. If Kyler and Marvin Harrison played, I would honestly pick the Cardinals to win this game, just because the Packers really have not been that impressive since week two. But that's definitely in question, and a lot of the times players don't play the week after concussion nowadays. So I think it's hard to pick that the Cardinals will win. So I'm gonna go with the Packers. Though if both of them play, I would pick the Cardinals. So next game is Sunday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons at the San Francisco 49ers. The Falcons just got a massive victory at home against the Buffalo Bills. Their defense absolutely shut down Josh Allen after the first drive of the game. Bijan Robinson is looking like one of the best running backs in the NFL. Michael Penix has been a bit inconsistent, but whenever he's throwing to Drake London, he looks amazing. Drake London had a really good game. He almost had a touchdown, but the clock ran out on him. Meanwhile, the 49ers, they've just been decimated by injuries this year. Um, Brock Purdy has missed multiple games. Ricky Pearsall has missed multiple games. Juwan Jennings came back after missing a game. However, he's apparently playing with multiple broken ribs and high and low ankle sprains. They just lost Fred Warner, arguably the best linebacker in the NFL for the entire season. Um, they're just been absolutely destroyed. And I think without Fred Warner, I think that the Falcons' run game is just going to absolutely destroy the 49ers. So I think that the Falcons will pick up a big road victory here.
I think that the Niners honestly could get this win versus the Falcons just because due to the fact of how inconsistent Michael Penix has been at times and just how the Niners offense you can always count on them being pretty consistent due to Kyle Shanahan and the fact that Christian McCaffrey has surprisingly been the only Niner this season that's stayed healthy.
Yeah.
I think the Niners get this win against the Falcons. It's probably going to be a very close game that is a coin flip, but I think that I trust Kyle Shanahan to do enough to lead the Niners to victory. Next game should be a very fun one between the Buccaneers and the Lions. Both teams have been very impressive, even with the Lions losing in a blowout to the Chiefs. The Bucks have just been an unstoppable offensive team so far this season, and their defense is more than just enough to get the wins with Todd Bowles coaching them. I think the Lions get this win here as a rebound from their loss to the Chiefs. I trust Dan Campbell to have this team well coached and rebound from that loss against the Chiefs. And this should be a very, very fun game with lots of scoring, but I think the Lions do just enough here to pull out the win.
I think I agree. I think I might take the Lions here. Baker Mayfield, if the season ended today, would be my MVP pick. But this game, they're going to be without Chris Godwin. They are probably going to be without Mike Evans and Emeka Ibuka, who has been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL his rookie season, also might be out. So he's going to be throwing to his wide receiver 4, 5, and 6, which is going to be really hard, even if the Lions secondary isn't very good. I think that the Lions will have a lot of success against the Buccaneers defense, and that the Lions will just win this game. And to close out the year, we have the Houston close out the week, not the year. Jesus. To close out the week, we have, yeah, the season actually ends after this game. They're just gonna cancel the year.
That's crazy.
We're
That's
just
crazy.
nope. Yeah. Yeah, we don't know who's going to win this year, so we're just going to cancel this year. I mean, if the Chiefs aren't definitely going to win the Super Bowl, why even play the year? Am I right?
I agree,
But
honestly, yeah.
um, but sorry about that. But to close out this week is the Texans at the Seattle Seahawks. I think that the Seahawks will win this game. The Texans have not been very impressive this year. The Seahawks have been very impressive this year. They're actually coming off a good road victory. Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba have been an absolute elite duo this year, and Jigba has been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. The Texans offense still looks pretty bad. They did just have their bye week, I think, but I don't know if they can make any significant adjustments to help cover up for the difference in play that's been shown so far this year. Maybe the Texans defense could get a couple of stops because D'Amico Ryans has led a pretty good defense in his time there. However, I think that the Seahawks offense is too good, and I don't think that the Texans offense is very good. So I think the Seahawks will put up enough points to get this victory.
Yeah, I agree. The Seahawks should have this win against the Texans, even though that Texans defense is very good. Sam Darnold has continued his great play from last season, and I know we claim Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer because he salvaged Sam Darnold's career, but honestly, it might just be that Sam Darnold actually just rebounded and has just continued his incredible. He just found his groove into turning into a very solid quarterback because he hasn't looked like any worse at any point this season, and he's helped Jackson Smith and Jigba just break out into an incredible wide receiver this season. So yeah, I think the Seahawks do enough here to get this win and move to 5-2.
Right, and a couple of teams on bye this week are the Bills, who just lost to the Atlanta Falcons. Buffalo has now lost two games in a row to the Patriots and the Falcons. I think a lot of people the first 4 weeks had kind of penciled in the Bills to make the Super Bowl because the Chiefs didn't look very impressive and the Ravens absolutely collapsed. But now the AFC kind of looks wide open because Buffalo just does not look very impressive over this last few weeks. And now Baltimore, obviously they've been completely injured. They are supposed to get Lamar Jackson back after this week. So maybe they can make a late season run. They are 1-5. It's going to be really hard, but there have been crazier late season runs. So who knows? But that is all the games. We've talked about the Cowboys, we've talked about the Eagles, we talked about the rest of the NFL. Thank you guys all for listening. Unless Salty, you want to add something before we end?
Just a quick note on the Bills. They really have to address their safety position, either in the trade deadline or maybe signing Justin Simmons, who's still somehow a free agent as far as this season, because Taylor Rapp has been pretty awful, and Damar Hamlin went on IR. It's just it was a big reason why Bijan Robinson had that massive gain against them for the 81-yard touchdown. It's just the terrible pursuit angles the safeties took, and they've just been very, very poor this season. It's like a very glaring hole for a reason that their defense has been just very bad so far to start the season.
Is there something wrong with us? Do you know if anything's wrong with Justin Simmons? Because I've been pretty shocked to see anyone sign him. Like, is he bad? Is he bad now or something?
I'm
Because I
gonna
thought he was
assume
pretty
he's
good.
just asking for too much money, like, and teams just don't want to sign him to that kind of contract, or maybe he's asking for like a 2 or 3 year deal just for financial security, and teams are just like, no, you're too old that they don't want to put that much money, like put that many resources to him.
Yeah, back in August, he said that he'd want to sign with the Bills, Eagles, or Bengals. So who knows?
Yeah, like I'd take them for us because Andrew Makuba has also been pretty rough for us so far. I know he's a rookie and everything. It's like growing pains, but I'd honestly be completely fine with signing Justin Simmons. Maybe like Chauncey Gardner Johnson as well, who just got released from the Ravens practice squad. But there are some like good safety options out there that teams like the Eagles and Bills could sign.
Yeah, I don't think that the Eagles are allowed to sign Chauncey Gardner, are they?
I think they are now because Chauncey signed with a different team. I know
Oh,
initially from
okay.
when he was released from the Texans, he couldn't because there's a rule that a player can't sign back with the team that traded him if they haven't played more than 3, 4 games for the other team. But now that he signed with the Ravens practice squad and got released, I think he should be.
We'll see. And since I know Justin Simmons is a big fan of the podcast,
But yeah,
um,
definitely.
if you want to come down over to Dallas, we could use you. Uh, I don't know if Jerry Jones will give you any money. He might just ask you to play for the minimum wage. But something about the Dallas pedigree, whatever. I don't know if that still matters, but come on down. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys all for listening, and we'll see you all next week.